November 18, 1978, the world awoke to horrifying news from a remote jungle in Guyana, South America. More than 900 men, women, and children had died in a mass tragedy that would forever be known as the Jonestown Massacre. They had been members of a religious and political group called the People's Temple, led by a charismatic but deeply dangerous preacher named Jim Jones. For many, Jonestown was supposed to be a utopia, a chance to live in peace, free from racism, poverty, and injustice. Instead, it became a nightmare. On that fateful day, mothers gave poison to their children. Families drank laced punch under the command of their leader. Others tried to flee but were forced to their deaths. The story of Jonestown is more than just a tale of tragedy. It's a warning about blind loyalty, the abuse of power, and the dangers of cult manipulation. To truly understand how over 900 lives were lost in one day, we must go back to where it all began, with Jim Jones himself. Jim Jones was born in 1931 in Indiana. From a young age, he was fascinated by religion, often preaching to other children. But he was also obsessed with control. Even in childhood, neighbors noticed he staged funerals for animals and demanded others attend. In adulthood, Jones became a minister and founded the People's Temple in the 1950s. He preached racial equality, a radical stance during an era of segregation. He attracted African Americans, poor families, and people disillusioned with mainstream churches. At first, the People's Temple seemed like a force for good. Members found community, purpose, and acceptance. They joined food programs, housing efforts, and social justice campaigns. But behind Jones's image of compassion was a manipulative man hungry for power. He demanded loyalty, staged healings, and gradually built a cult of personality where he alone was the voice of truth. By the 1960s and 70s, the People's Temple had grown rapidly. Jones relocated the group to California, where he gained influence and political connections. Jones presented himself as a champion of the poor. He adopted children of multiple races, calling his family a rainbow family. He railed against racism and injustice, drawing crowds who believed he represented hope. But inside the temple, life was different. Members worked long hours, gave up personal possessions, and were forced to sign false confessions of crimes to ensure loyalty. Those who questioned Jones faced public humiliation or punishment. Jones used fear to control his followers. He warned them that the government wanted to destroy the temple, that enemies lurked everywhere, and that only he could protect them. The seeds of paranoia were planted, and they would soon grow into something much darker. By the mid-1970s, Jones faced increasing media scrutiny. Reports exposed his abuses, beatings, financial exploitation, and sexual misconduct. Families begged authorities to investigate. To escape, Jones announced a new plan, a socialist paradise in the jungles of Guyana, South America. He called it Jonestown. In 1977, hundreds of temple members moved there, convinced they were building a utopia. They cleared jungle land, built housing, and grew crops. Jones promised equality, freedom, and peace. But life in Jonestown was far from paradise. The settlement was overcrowded and undersupplied. Food was scarce, medical care limited, and workdays long. Guards patrolled the community. Members couldn't leave without permission. And Jones, increasingly addicted to drugs, gave rambling speeches over loudspeakers that blared day and night. Jonestown was no longer a dream, it was a prison. Daily life was harsh. Families ate rice and beans, often with little else. They worked from sunrise to sunset in the tropical heat. Letters were censored, and contact with the outside world was restricted. Jones controlled every detail. He staged white night drills, emergency rehearsals where members practiced mass suicide, drinking what they thought was poison to prove loyalty. Some members wanted to leave, but they couldn't. Passports were taken, guards watched everyone, and defectors were branded as traitors. Jones's paranoia deepened. He warned his followers that the U.S. government and CIA wanted to destroy them. He insisted that if outsiders ever came, they would all have to die rather than be taken. The stage was set for tragedy. By 1978, relatives of Temple members grew desperate. They pressured U.S. officials to investigate Jonestown. Congressman Leo Ryan from California decided to visit in November, bringing journalists and concerned family members with him. Privately, several members slipped notes to visitors, begging for help to leave. When Jones realized people wanted out, his paranoia exploded. On November 18, Ryan and his group prepared to leave with a handful of defectors. But as they reached the airstrip at Port Kaituma, gunmen loyal to Jones ambushed them. Congressman Ryan, 3 journalists, and 1 defector were killed. Others were wounded. This act of violence sealed Jonestown's fate. Back at Jonestown, Jim Jones gathered his followers in the pavilion. He told them Ryan's death meant the U.S. would invade, that their enemies were coming to destroy everything. He presented one final command: revolutionary suicide. Large containers of grape-flavored drink mixed with cyanide, tranquilizers, and sedatives were prepared. Parents were ordered to give it to their children first. Witnesses described screams and chaos as mothers and fathers forced their little ones to drink. Then the adults followed. Some went willingly, convinced by Jones's words. Others were forced at gunpoint. Jones himself did not drink. He died from a gunshot wound, believed to be self-inflicted. In total, 918 people died, including more than 300 children. It was the largest loss of American civilian life in a deliberate act until September 11, 2001. Not everyone died that day. A handful escaped into the jungle before the final act. Others were away from Jonestown on assignments. Their testimonies paint a chilling picture. The U.S. military flew in to recover bodies, transporting them back to America. Families mourned and questions lingered. How could this have happened? How could so many follow a leader to such an end? For scholars, Jonestown became a case study in cult behavior. It revealed how charismatic leaders exploit fear, isolation, and loyalty to maintain control. It also exposed how vulnerable people, searching for hope and belonging, can be drawn into destructive movements. Jonestown left a mark on American culture and language. The phrase "drinking the Kool-Aid" emerged, used to describe blind obedience, though the real drink was flavor aid. More importantly, it left behind lessons about the dangers of unchecked power and the vulnerability of communities searching for justice. Jim Jones began as a preacher promising racial equality and social justice. He ended as a dictator leading hundreds to their deaths. His story is a reminder that noble words can hide dangerous intentions. The Jonestown Massacre is one of the darkest chapters in modern history. It shows how hope can turn into horror, how faith can be twisted into fear, and how one man's vision can destroy hundreds of lives. But it also serves as a warning that blind loyalty, isolation, and manipulation can lead to catastrophe. Today, the voices of Jonestown still echo. They remind us that truth must be questioned, power must be challenged, and freedom must never be surrendered to fear. 918 lives were lost that day. We remember them not just for how they died, but for the warning their story leaves behind. Please subscribe to Real Stories and Adventure Channel, so that you can get more stories and histories associated with United States. On November 18, 1978, the world awoke to horrifying news from a jungle jungle in Guyana, South America. More than 900 men, women, and children had died in a mass tragedy that would forever be known as the Jonestown Massacre. They had been members of a religious and political group called the People's Temple, led by a charismatic but deeply dangerous preacher named Jim Jones. For many, Jonestown was supposed to be a utopia, a chance to live in peace, free from racism, poverty, and injustice. Instead, it became a nightmare. On that fateful day, mothers gave poison to their children. Families drank cyanide-laced punch under the command of their leader. Others tried to flee but were forced to their deaths. The story of Jonestown is more than just a tale of tragedy. It's a warning about blind loyalty, the abuse of power, and the dangers of cult manipulation.